Yo, what is going on, everyone? My name is Nick, or the Notorious Fantasy, and in today's video, we're going to be doing a 12-team PPR mock draft from the 5th overall spot on Yahoo Fantasy. Inside today's video, we're going to be going in-depth on my thought process as I make each and every single pick inside of this draft, as well as talking about my overall feelings on the draft as a whole. But before we get on in to this mock draft, I would like to ask, if you are new to the YouTube channel and you do end up enjoying today's video, to please make sure that you hit that subscribe button down below. Not only is it free, I put out content every single day to help you guys win your 2021 Fantasy Football Championship. And while you're down there, whether you are new to the channel or not, please make sure that you hit that like button down below to help boost this video up the algorithm so that more beautiful people like yourself can see today's video. I would also like to let you guys know that my rankings are available for free on Awesemo.com. The link to those are going to be down below in the description, as well as in the pinned comment. I also write articles on Awesemo.com every single day. They are also free. Link down below with the rankings will be down there in the description, as well as in the pinned comment. So without further ado, let's get into the draft. So at the number 1 overall pick, basically every single time you're going to be seeing Christian McCaffrey, and at number 2, you're likely going to be seeing Dalvin Cook. Now at number 2, it's not as locked in that it's going to be Dalvin Cook as it is with Christian McCaffrey being locked in as the number 1 overall guy. Here we see Ezekiel Elliott going at 2. Do I agree with that? No, if I'm sitting there at the number 2 overall spot, I'm taking Dalvin Cook every single time. At number 3, we see Dalvin Cook come off the board, which is the correct decision after someone takes another player ahead of Dalvin Cook. At number 4, we see Alvin Kamara. So we are on the board here at the 5th overall spot. And to me, it is a relatively easy pick. While I like Aaron Jones a lot, I'm going to lean with Derrick Henry here at the 105. While Derrick Henry basically has zero pass catching upside, there's about a 0% chance that he gets some type of uptick in the receiving game, but it doesn't matter at all because he is probably the only running back in the NFL that it wouldn't even surprise you if he rushed for over 2,000 yards. This guy is a focal point in the Tennessee Titans offense. With the addition of Julio Jones, I believe this team is going to be able to score even more points, and that is going to benefit Derrick Henry a ton because he's going to be the one punching it in when they are in the red zone. And I really like Derrick Henry last season. I really like him again in 2021. After Derrick Henry came 9-inch Nicholas Chubb, Aaron Jones, and Davante Adams. Typically inside the first round, you're going to see anywhere from 2 to 4 non-running backs go inside the first round, and typically it's after the halfway point through the first round when the wide receivers start to come off of the board, as well as potentially seeing a tight end in Travis Kelce. Now, the reason behind this is because if you're one of those top 5, 6, 7 picks, it's basically locked and loaded that you can get a workhorse running back that is going to be putting up big points for you week in and week out, and that is very, very hard to find in a fantasy draft. There are far and few in between in the NFL who are true workhorse running backs, so snagging one of those early on in the first round is definitely the most ideal strategy. You never really see anyone besides a running back go inside of the first 6 or 7 picks of draft. So after Davante Adams came Saquon Barkley, Tyreek Hill, and Jonathan Taylor. The first round closes out with Stefon Diggs. So in this draft, we see 3 non-running backs go inside of the first round, all 3 of those being wide receivers. Now, the debate between Davante Adams, Tyreek Hill, and Stefon Diggs on who is going to be the number 1 wide receiver in fantasy football, to me, is a bit of a dumb debate because it really is just splitting hairs. If you told me you liked Hill the most, Diggs the most, or Davante Adams the most, to me it wouldn't really affect me at all. I think those are the clear top 3 at the position, but I think Calvin Ridley is really close to them, and a lot of people don't really give Calvin Ridley that sort of praise that I believe he deserves. To me, Davante Adams should be the first overall wide receiver off the board, but again, I'm not going to budge if you take Tyreek Hill or Stefon Diggs over him. The second round begins with Austin Eckler, followed by Travis Kelce and Najee Harris. It's very interesting in fantasy drafts to follow where the tight end position goes early on in the draft. Seeing Travis Kelce fall into the beginning of the second round is not all that surprising because if he doesn't go at the end of the first round, he ends up typically coming off the board relatively quick inside of the second round. In a lot of drafts, though, he is cemented inside of the first round. After Travis Kelce came Najee Harris, Antonio Gibson, and Joe Mixon. The first 2 rounds of drafts are typically just dominated 50 Shades of Grey style by the running back position. And then in the third and the fourth round, you typically start to see a barrage of wide receivers fall off the board because, again, people like to hammer onto the running backs early because they start to kind of get more risky and riskier as the draft goes on. And the wide receivers, at least in my opinion, don't feel as risky in the third, the fourth round, or in the sixth, seventh, eighth round of drafts when you could be taking your wide receivers there. They seem very, very safe, whereas the running backs in that range, to me, definitely seem a lot more dicey. So we're back up on the board here after Joe Mixon came Calvin Ridley and DeAndre Hopkins. So looking here at wide receiver, Justin Jefferson, DK Metcalf, Darren Waller. Looking at running backs, there isn't too much here that I'm super in love with taking inside of the second round. So we are going to go ahead and lean wide receiver and go with Justin Jefferson, wide receiver of the Minnesota Vikings. Justin Jefferson tore it up in his rookie campaign last season, and it came to the surprise of many, including myself, because I honestly believed that these rookie wide receivers, it would take them a bunch of weeks to really get that kind of chemistry with the quarterback because of how fucked up the offseason was last year due to COVID. Remember, there was no preseason last season. The training camp was messed up. It wasn't what it normally is. Even this season, the training camp was way more like normal than it was last season. So I think Justin Jefferson's going to continue to develop in 2021 and be the same dangerous wide receiver that we saw last season out of Minnesota. And Adam Thielen scored so many touchdowns last season. I believe it was 14. Again, don't quote me on that. I'm not sure exactly how many it was. We could probably actually find them to get you the exact number. But I do expect Justin Jefferson's touchdown total to go up if Adam Thielen comes back down to earth here. He scored 14 touchdowns last season. My brain does not fail me there. So after we went with Justin Jefferson came DK Metcalf, George Kittle, Clyde Edwards-Helaire, Darren Waller, J.K. Dobbins, and CeeDee Lamb. Interesting to see George Kittle and Darren Waller go before the third round even begins. Now, that basically just goes to show you guys that if you really want to get Darren Waller on your team, he's one of those tight end targets that I'm very heavily invested into this season, a guy that I'm really looking to get onto my team. If you really want him to be your tight end number one, a guy that I believe could finish as the tight end number one in fantasy football this year and leapfrog over Travis Kelce, then you're probably going to have to pull the trigger, honestly, inside of the second round to guarantee that he's going to be on your team. And I guess you would probably wait until the end of the second round, because if you took him in the middle of the second round, to me, at least, that's definitely a reach. After Dobbins came CeeDee Lamb, Robert Woods, and Chris Carson. So we're back up on the board here, looking at the running backs, David Montgomery, James Robinson, Darrell Henderson. To me, I'd rather wait until the fourth round and then hope maybe James Robinson falls my way inside of the early third round, the middle of the third round. I think that's a little too high of a price to pay. And here we're going to go ahead and snag A.J. Brown, wide receiver of the Tennessee Titans. Now, I know some people may be against me taking A.J. Brown because I already have Derrick Henry on my team. And the times when I'm not okay taking a running back and a wide receiver on the same team is when the team isn't very good. When that team isn't going to be able to score enough points on a per game basis to really sustain two players at the wide receiver and running back position. To me, I think that Ryan Tannehill and this Tennessee Titans offense can sustain having Derrick Henry and A.J. Brown finish at the top 10 in each of their positions, potentially even top 5 in both of their cases. So I would understand if you didn't want to go with A.J. Brown. Say you think, you know what, I don't want to take that risk of having two players on the same team. I won't disagree with you. That's a fine thought process as well. You could have leaned Allen Robinson or Terry McLaurin at that pick. Seeing James Robinson go here in the middle of the third round is definitely interesting. I want to see over the next couple of mock drafts where he is going to be falling in drafts, because in the third round, where you're really looking for a running back that you believe does have the potential to be top 12, I would be a little bit worried. Not because I'm worried about James Robinson's talent, but I'm worried about the fact that I believe Urban Meyer is going to use Carlos Hyde enough to kind of make it so that James Robinson can't finish inside the top 12. Now, right now, I believe in PPR, I have him ranked as the running back number 16, maybe 17, maybe 18, somewhere in that range. So I don't hate James Robinson, but I think his upside is limited by the fact that I believe that Urban Meyer is going to want to use Carlos Hyde a little bit more than you would want if you were to draft James Robinson. So after James Robinson came Terry McLaurin, Patty Mahomes, Keenan Allen, Mike Evans, Chris Godwin, Josh Allen, and Darrell Henderson. I think a lot of people kind of really overreacted after the news that Sony Michel got traded to the LA Rams. Now, obviously, that is far from best case scenario, but what's more telling about that move to me is that the Rams aren't comfortable with Jake Funk or the other running backs behind Darrell Henderson to be the true number 2 running back. I think it does slightly hurt Darrell Henderson that Sony Michel is there, but I definitely wouldn't overreact to it, and I'm fine taking him inside the 4th round. After Darrell Henderson came Lamar Jackson, DeAndre Swift, Cooper Kupp, and Josh Jacobs. So we're back up on the board at this pick. Let's go ahead and look at the running backs. Miles Sanders, Mike Davis. I really do like Mike Davis a lot, but I think it is a reach to take him inside the 4th round. We already have 2 wide receivers, but I'm fine diving into the wide receiver position yet again and getting a 3rd wide receiver at this pick, and we're going to go ahead and get Amari Cooper. Now, I know a lot of people seem to be really on the CeeDee Lamb train, and trust me, I am as well, but I think that most people aren't remembering that, hey, Amari Cooper is still going to be relatively used on this team. Amari Cooper could easily be the number 1 fucking target for Dak Prescott, like he has been in the past. Now, a lot of us are really projecting CeeDee Lamb to take that next leap, that next step up, and I believe he will, but there is still a pretty solid chance, at least in my mind, that Amari Cooper does get the most amount of targets and receptions on this Dallas Cowboys offense, and if Dak Prescott is able to stay healthy, and he is healthy to start the season, then both CeeDee Lamb and Amari Cooper genuinely could be top 12 wide receivers because of how pass-heavy this offense is in Dallas, because of how bad that defense is for the Cowboys. So after Darrell Henderson came Lamar Jackson, DeAndre Swift, Cooper Kupp, Josh Jacobs. We went with Amari Cooper, followed by Kyle Pitts, Adam Thielen, and Julio Jones. If I'm being honest, I think I say if I'm being honest a lot in these videos, so I do apologize, but when I'm making my pick there with Amari Cooper, if I didn't already have A.J. Brown and Derrick Henry, I would consider taking Julio Jones above Amari Cooper. I think a lot of people are heavily sleeping on Julio Jones because you don't just trade for a wide receiver with the prowess, with the skill set, with the history of Julio Jones if you just don't plan to use him. So I don't understand why Julio is falling so far in drafts. This time going in the 4th round, sometimes I see him fall all the way into the 5th round. After Julio came Miles Sanders, Tyler Lockett, Kyler Murray, and Mike Davis. Sadly, Mike Davis does not fall our way inside of the 5th round, but there are still some running backs that I definitely like at this spot. Right now, our roster is comprised of Justin Jefferson, A.J. Brown, Derrick Henry, and Amari Cooper. So we are back up on the board here at the 53rd overall pick, and Damien Harris's ADP, or at least ranking on Yahoo, has seemed to skyrocket up the draft board after Sony Michel is gone. Who, if I'm being honest with you, I said it again, motherfucker. Can someone keep a chart in the comment section, or maybe just comment like how many times I say if I'm being honest in the video, because I've noticed a lot of people talk about how much I say it, so I do genuinely apologize for that. But what I was saying there was that Damien Harris is moving up draft boards because Sony Michel is gone. What did Sony Michel have to do with Damien Harris at all? Sony Michel was not going to be used very much at all in this offense. You should have still been very much in on Damien Harris. I have been all over drafting Damien Harris all offseason long. His ADP has crept up a little bit, but I guess now it's crept up into the 5th round. Am I fine taking him there? Yeah, but I definitely would prefer taking Myles Gaskin. I do have Myles Gaskin ranked ahead of him. I think that the Miami Dolphins team is going to be dangerous this season. I think that Tua Tagovailoa is going to take that next leap up this season. This offense is going to look a lot better. And even last year with Ryan Fitzpatrick, with Tua Tagovailoa, Myles Gaskin was able to put up these big numbers. He's also a very solid receiving running back and is the clear number 1 in this backfield. There was a lot of kind of fugazi arguments that were being made just about 2 weeks ago after that first preseason game. People were like, oh man, Salvin Ahmed looks really good. Malcolm Brown's gonna steal all of Myles Gaskin's work. And people really did start to have a full-on fucking panic about Myles Gaskin, and he started falling down to like the 7th round of average draft position, and I was still standing there telling you guys that, hey, Myles Gaskin's going to be fine. He's the clear number 1 back. He's the most talented back. And guess what happened? In week number 2, he blew the back out of the Atlanta Falcons defense, which everyone should have expected. Myles Gaskin is that guy in Miami. So I'm very excited to get him on my team inside the 5th round. After Gaskin came TJ Hawkinson, Mark Andrews, DJ Moore, Kareem Hunt, Brandon Ayuk, Damien Harris, Russell Wilson. The 6th round opens with Javonte Williams, T. Higgins and Logan Thomas. Very disappointed that Damien Harris came off the board in the 5th round and won't fall to us, but at this point, it really is what it is. I'm going to go ahead and move myself to the right side of the screen so that you guys can see the draft board a little bit better. Either way of where I put myself, I'm going to mildly cover up a pick. So we are going to be on the board very shortly in 3 picks, but before we make our 6th round pick, I would like to ask if you guys have ended up enjoying thus far, to please make sure that you hit that subscribe button down below. Not only is it free, I'm putting out this content every single day to help you guys win your 2021 Fantasy Football Championship. This video right now is the 2nd video of the day. Most days I am posting 2 videos on the channel. Make sure you also hit that like button down below if you have ended up enjoying. So we're about to be back up on the board. After Logan Thomas came Odell Beckham Jr. and Dak Prescott. Very surprising to see Russell Wilson go ahead of Dak Prescott, and I do understand why that happened because people are a little bit more worried about Dak's injury. Right now, I am perfectly fine. He was practicing on 11 on 11 practices yesterday, so I'm perfectly fine, assuming that Dak Prescott is going to be healthy for week number 1. So we're back up on the board here. The running backs still available are not very, very nice, as Mr. Borat would say. So we are going to lean with the wide receiver position here and go ahead and get my second favorite wide receiver on the Pittsburgh Steelers. I am all aboard the Deontay Johnson train, but I do believe that Chase Claypool is going to take that next step up, that next leap up in his sophomore season in the NFL. We saw a lot from him in his rookie season, and I think that Big Ben is honestly going to look a lot better this season. If you guys saw him play in preseason week number 2, he also looked a little bit slimmer. Maybe not like that fat fuck Big Ben who couldn't, if you guys ever seen that picture, maybe I can put it on the screen right now if I remember to edit it in. But it's where Big Ben's putting his helmet on, and it looks like his face is just screaming for air. There's just no room in there. It is squished in by the helmet. It is probably one of the funniest pictures ever. And now he's looking a little bit skinnier. Maybe he's going to be looking a little bit better. He looked pretty good in that preseason game. I think Chase Claypool is the clear number 2 target in Pittsburgh behind Mr. Deontay Johnson, and I expect him to have a very, very nice season in 2021. I like a Chase Claypool. So after I went ahead and drafted Mr. Chase Claypool came Aaron Rodgers, Justin Herbert, the pervert, Tyler Boyd, and Kenny G-Spot, Kenny Bones, Kenny Golladay at the end of the 6th round. So Kenny Golladay still not back in practice. Starting to worry. If he's not back in practice by Monday, then there is going to be a full-on panic to where I'm not drafting Kenny Golladay anymore. Right now, my belief is he's going to be fine for the start of the season, but, you know, it's basically been near 3 weeks. The 2 to 3 week kind of period for where he's going to be healthy, apparently, just seems to be thrown out the window. There's probably been a setback. Unless he's back Monday, I'm going to start to get really, really nervous about Kenny Golladay. After Golladay came Tampa Bay, Tom Brady, Tyler Higbee, Chase Edmonds, and Ronald Jones. The amount of quarterbacks coming off the board early on here is quite concerning. So we're back here onto the board, looking at the running backs, Melvin Gordon, Raheem Mostert, A.J. Dillon. Things are going to start to get very, very dicey soon. So we are going to lean and go ahead and get our 3rd running back here and go with Raheem Mostert. If I'm being honest with you, this is far from a sexy pick. Now, the reason why I don't love the Raheem Mostert pick is because I think he is going to be the starter on the 49ers. He's going to get the first licks of this first-team offense, so he will be the first guy getting the touches. But I think eventually Trey Sermon could surpass him. But if Raheem Mostert was to get the hot hand in this offense, he could really be amazing for fantasy football because of how much the 49ers run the ball. And once Trey Lance takes over, I think they're going to start running the ball at an even higher rate, which would be great for Raheem Mostert. So he's definitely worth the shot, in my opinion, inside of the 7th round. A pick I didn't get to talk about, but I want to kind of circle in on, is Kyle Pitts inside the 4th round. Now, I'm not going to stand over here and be a Kyle Pitts hater, but I think there's a lot of risk in taking a rookie tight end when only one rookie tight end in the last 10 years, in the last decade, who has finished inside of the top 5 in their rookie season. One, that was Evan Ingram. Now, I'm not saying Kyle Pitts can't do it, but in the 4th round, I think it is definitely a very, very risky pick. And early on in the draft, in the first 4 rounds, is where I'm looking to, as I always say, wrap a metaphorical condom onto my team. Keep it as safe as possible. But to me, Kyle Pitts is a risky pick inside of the 4th round. Could he be a top 5 tight end? Probably, right? Because of how much of a beast the motherfucker is. There's a reason why he's getting comparisons to Calvin Johnson when he was getting drafted into the NFL. There's a reason why the Atlanta Falcons didn't take a quarterback and went ahead and picked him so early on in the draft, but I'm still a little bit cautious about it. So after I went with Mostert, came Antonio Brown, Jalen Hurts, Jamar Chase, Dallas Goedert, Leonard Fournette, Melvin Gordon, James Conner, Noah Fant, LA defense, Deebo Samuel, Robert Tonyan, and Michael Thomas. Please do not take 2 tight ends in the draft, and if you do, I'm fine with you taking 2 tight ends, but please don't take them back-to-back Michael Jordan 96, 97 in the 7th, 8th round turn. That is absolutely ludicrous, in my opinion. After the Washington football team came Matthew Stafford. So I'm pretty sure every single team, aside from myself, has a quarterback, and this seems like the kind of draft where people are going to start taking 2 quarterbacks, so I should probably look to get my second quarterback, or my first quarterback, before they take a second quarterback. Looking at tight ends, nothing too special here, but I do like Irv Smith, but in the 8th round, I'm not too sure that's the price I want to pay for him, so here we're going to go ahead and get Cortland Sutton. Now, I definitely do prefer Jerry Jeudy in this offense, and I was very, 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 very to the 7th degree, if we're talking, is that how you do the math? Right? Like with the very with like a 7 on top, you know what I'm talking about? I don't know. I haven't taken a math class in like 4 years, but Cortland Sutton, you know, I like Jeudy better. But I think that Cortland Sutton could return to form how he played in 2019, where he looked really, really good. I think Jerry Jeudy complements Cortland Sutton very well. My issue, though, is that Drew Lock isn't the quarterback. I think Drew Lock pushes the tempo in the games. I think Teddy Bridgewater would rather dump the ball off and play it safe. He plays a safe version of football. Drew Lock plays the kind of YOLO in a way. You know, this is in 2012, but you get what I mean, like the fuck it kind of football. Guy might not be open. Fuck it. He's out there somewhere. Throw it to Cortland Sutton deep down the field. Teddy Bridgewater isn't going to do that. Maybe it's better overall for fantasy, but I personally believe Drew Lock should have been the quarterback, but Teddy Bridgewater is definitely a fine enough quarterback for Cortland Sutton to have success. I mean, last year, Teddy Bridgewater was able to get a couple of wide receivers on his team to be very, very relevant in Carolina, even though he only threw for 15 touchdowns. I mean, that number alone definitely does worry me a little bit, but I'm still fine taking Cortland Sutton inside of the 8th, 9th round where he's going right now. And again, the reason why we want to take a quarterback soon is because this is the kind of league that feels like, you know, someone already took 2 tight ends. So to me, that shows me enough already that some asshole may end up taking another quarterback. People might start taking 2 quarterbacks, 3 quarterbacks. That does happen in some drafts. This draft that we are doing right now is probably the best look into what doing a friends and family league will actually look like. What drafting with the people from your office is going to look like, because not everyone is some fantasy football genius who's watching a fantasy football video like yourself right now to prepare for their draft. Some people just, they go into the draft raw dog. They don't do any type of research, and then they show up and they draft based upon what is on the screen. So that's why drafts will start to look like this. Please don't draft 2 defenses. Don't draft 2 kickers as well, but I see that in a lot of drafts. So here we are going to go with Irv Smith. The 9th round is definitely a technical high price for Irv Smith, not because I think Irv Smith's going to be bad. I actually have him ranked, I believe, as my tight end number 6 or 7, so I like Irv Smith a lot, but he used to fall to like the 11th round. He could have fallen to the 11th round in this draft, but I did notice that a couple of teams did not have a tight end yet. Brad over here, as well as I think someone else didn't have a tight end and they just took him, so I went ahead and got Irv Smith to make sure that I got my guy who I am a huge fan of this season. The reason why I'm such a big fan of Irv Smith this season is because with Kyle Rudolph gone, I think Irv Smith really fills that role perfectly. Last year when Kyle Rudolph was banged up, Irv Smith stepped into the lineup and really did show out, so I think we could see a lot of that in 2021, and to become a top 5 tight end, in reality, it's not all that hard, so I think there is a chance that Irv Smith elevates himself to become that. So we still do not have a quarterback. We definitely got to take one relatively soon. People are already taking defenses. They are already taking kickers. I would like to tell you guys to please wait on kicker and defense till the last 2 rounds of the draft. The only position I'd be fine reaching up on, and I'm talking about like a slight reach, maybe instead of the 14th round, you draft him in the 13th round, is a kicker if you really like one of those kickers, because while you can stream the kicker position, and I will talk about it on my channel, it is typically, if you have a kicker that's pretty good, they're going to be putting up similar production week in and week out. And if you have that reliable kicker every single week, that is going to be pretty solid for your fantasy lineup. There will be a kicker rankings video out eventually. Even though I don't really like talking about kickers so much, they are very important for fantasy football. They're still one of those roster positions that you need to start every single week, whether you like them or not. One of my main leagues, we axe the kicker. I don't like kickers. I think that, frankly, said it again, that they are a waste of time because there's really no skill in trying to figure out which kicker to start every week. But, you know, to each their own. If you like kickers, don't come for me in the comment section because I still have kickers in a lot of my leagues, and I do talk about them in these videos. So after we went with Cortland Sutton, came Juju Smith-Schuster, Robbie Anderson, A.J. Dillon, Pittsburgh Steelers defense, Justin Tucker, the fucker, San Francisco 49ers, Gus, Bus, Edwards, Corey Davis. We went with Irv Smith. After that came Zach Moss, Harrison, Bucker, the fucker, Mike Licky, Amagasicki, Tampa Bay Bucks, Alexander Mattison, my old bitch lame, but my young Hoku, Baltimore Ravens defense, Marquez Callaway, and Jamal Williams. Interesting to see where Marquez Callaway goes in these drafts. I apologize if I say his name wrong. I think it's Marquez, but it might be Marquez Callaway. I've heard it said both ways. He should be the #1 wide receiver in New Orleans. Jameis looks to become the starter now. Will he be? I think so, but Sean Payton still hasn't named a quarterback because of the advantage that it gives you to not name a quarterback. Yeah, such a strong fucking advantage. Everyone in the NFL knows that Jameis Winston just went to absolute pound town up against the Jacksonville defense and that he's probably going to be the starter unless, of course, he was to get hurt. Sony Michel in the 10th round. I mean, I'm telling you guys, I really don't think he's going to carve out that much of a role to fuck over Darrell Henderson enough to where he'd be viable in fantasy. Now, if Darrell Henderson was to go down, Sony Michel could be dangerous, but how set in are we on Sony Michel? Obviously, they traded for him, so they're going to use him, but he's had knee issues his whole career. So, I don't know. After Michel came Wiki DJ Chark, followed by the Denver defense. Here we probably are going to be leaning with our quarterback since we don't have one already, and I'm pretty sure that someone's going to eventually take a backup quarterback. Looking at Mr. Tannehill, he is on the COVID IR list. Obviously, not the greatest, but it does appear that when these players get on the COVID list, that they'll be back relatively soon, and he should be back by week 1. So unless something comes out that says Tannehill out week 1 or something, I'm not really going to be all that nervous about Ryan Tannehill, and he probably would be the pick here, but we do already have so many Tennessee Titans players that at that point, you are just the Titans. This isn't Nick's fantasy team. This is the Tennessee fucking Titans, so I don't know if I could do that, but so instead, we will go with my boy Joey B, Joe Burrow. Now, Joe Burrow is probably not going to be 100% healthy for week 1. He is practicing right now. There are some signs pointing towards maybe he'll play in preseason, maybe for like half a second, right? They bring him in, they take him out. I wouldn't risk putting him in preseason if I was Zach Taylor, but they might. And while he may not be 100%, he's probably close to 90 or 95%, and that should be good enough to potentially have top 5 potential in 2021 if that knee injury doesn't bother him and he's not scared to run the ball, because we saw him start to run the ball deeper down in the season, use his legs a little bit more, and that was magnifique for fantasy football, looking for that rushing upside. I believe Joe Burrow has it, but it is a psychological thing with that injury. Maybe he is a little bit nervous to get freaky out there and start running the ball. So after I went Joe Burrow, came Phillip Lindsay, Devontae Smith, Greg the Leg Zerline, Ryan Tannehill, and Michael Gallup. So right now, where we're at in the draft, the running backs have dried up completely, but the fact is I am already very comfortable with Henry, with Gaskin, and I think Mostert has enough upside to where I'm just going to hammer in on these late round running backs, and if just one of them hits, that's good enough for me. Now, I am probably the #1 Devin Singletary hater on the earth, but what I do realize is that Devin Singletary, while Zach Moss is leaps and bounds, in my opinion, better than Devin Singletary, it doesn't matter because that's not what the Bills believe. The Bills believe that Devin Singletary is that guy, pal, and they're probably going to continue to give him the ball on the first team, and Devin Singletary will be the superior back for fantasy, which sucks. I still like taking Zach Moss. I think Zach Moss is better and could eventually become the starting running back, but Zach Moss has also dealt with plenty of injury history in the past, and if he was to get hurt, then Singletary really could elevate himself to having somewhat of a strong enough role in this offense to where I would want to start him maybe some games. Obviously, again, I'm really banking on the fact that Derrick Henry and Gaskin are really good, but with the roster we have, with Jefferson, with A.J. Brown, with Amari Cooper, this very, very strong wide receiver core, with the upside in Joe Burrow, the upside in Irv Smith, I really believe we have constructed a very strong starting roster, and our bench wide receivers are chef's kiss. Very, very nice with Chase Claypool and Cortland Sutton. Maybe earlier on, I should have maybe reached on Clyde Edwards-Helaire inside of the second round instead of taking Justin Jefferson, and my running back core may look a little bit stronger, but with how we drafted, I honestly really do like this team. Let me know down below what you guys think of my team thus far in the draft. If you don't like it, that's fine with me as well. I like having conversations in the comment section. I like trying to make you guys think. I don't just like to tell you what to do and then you just blindly follow what I do. I like to really have some nice discourse with you in the comment section. So this is the squad we got thus far. I apologize for blocking out Devin Singletary's name. Devin Singletary last season was probably the easiest player maybe ever to spot that was going to be a bust. He was going in like the 5th round and the guy fucking sucks. But again, we got him at pick 125, so I'm definitely fine taking the risk on a player that I don't really like, but that's one of the things you got to do in fantasy. You got to put your bias aside. You got to just draft these players where the value is at, and you also want to make sure that you're not just drafting the same players every single draft, and you want to make sure, especially in mock drafts, that you're trying out different strategies. This was basically the quote-unquote hero running back strategy that a lot of people like to talk about. You take that first round running back to anchor your team, and then the 2nd, 3rd, 4th round, maybe even the 5th round, you hammer in on the wide receiver position. Then you have that sole running back that is going to be the workhorse, the hero running back of your team. That is a very popular strategy that I see a bunch of people talking about all over the Twitterverse and even on YouTube. We are back up on the board here, and we are going to lean with another running back still available. J.D. McKissick, Rashad Penny, James White, Carlos Hyde here. I'm going to go ahead and take James White. While I think that Ramondre Stevenson is going to have some type of a role in this offense, I think James White is going to be getting a decent amount of receiving work in this offense, which is definitely fine with me with a late round dart throw. Last season, he was going in like the 6th, 7th round. I really liked him last year. Obviously, things didn't end up working out, but now at that discount with James White, I like him a decent amount, and I think I will like him even better if and when potentially Mac Jones becomes the starting quarterback of the New England Deflatriots. So, after we went with Kenyon Drake, came Laviska Shenault, Will Fuller the 5th, Sir Will Fuller, Tyler Bass, Pro Shop, Naheem Hines, Henry Ruggs the 3rd, David Johnson, Matt Ryan, Giovanni Bernard, Trevor Lawrence, Baker Mayfield, Jason Sanders, Tony Pollard, Jonnu Smith, Marvin Jones, James White, Cleveland defense, and Darnell Mooney. Very, very weird drafting Laviska Shenault and Marvin Jones. Very, very strange, in my opinion. After Darnell Mooney came Jarvis Landry. Jarvis Landry is just one of those picks that I never understand taking. In fantasy, early on, like I said at the beginning of the video, you want to be as safe as possible. But in the late rounds, I'm looking for these guys with very high upside. What upside does Jarvis Landry have? He's just going to average 10 points every single game. The Browns run the ball all the time. He doesn't have that much upside. But a guy like Darnell Mooney has immense upside with how much he could be used in this Bears offense. I don't like Curtis Samuel, but I could even see him having much more upside if Ron Rivera uses him on those trick kind of plays where they do the jet sweeps and shit. And maybe Mr. Ryan Fitzpatrick throws him the ball a little bit more than I expect, and he could be fine. But Jarvis Landry, he's just a safe pick, and in these late rounds, I like to get a little bit risky. I understand James White isn't locked and loaded in to have a huge role in this offense, but there is potential, in my opinion, that he could have a decent role in this offense. With our final pick here, we are probably going to lean, let's see. I wish we could see, oh yeah, here it is. We can see how many running backs. We have 4 wide receivers, 5 running backs. A good rule of thumb is at the end of the draft to have at least the same amount of running backs and wide receivers, or more running backs than wide receivers, because it's very easy any given week to whip out your phone, go on the waiver wire, and find some random wide receiver to start. But at the running back position, it is much more difficult to do that. So you want to have all these upside pieces on your bench. I love Antonio. No, I don't love Antonio Gibson this season. I really did in the offseason. But then I realized, or earlier on in the offseason, but then I realized that, hey, McKissick is going to have a role in this offense. He did get a whole ton of receptions last season. I think he could be in for a similar role this season, and if he is, that's going to kind of cuck out Antonio Gibson from finishing in the top 5, but it will give J.D. McKissic enough of a role for me to want to draft him because, hey, if things get bad, if my running backs get hurt, there's a lot worse running backs to start week in, week out than J.D. McKissic. After we went with McKissic came Kansas City defense, Ryan Fitzmagic, Evan Ingram, Jalen Waddle, Daniel Carlson, Hollywood Brown, Robbie Gould, Austin Hooper, Hunter Henry, New England Patriots defense, Rob Gronkowski, and Big Ben Roethlisberger. Trey Lance is a very interesting pick in these drafts. Did Justin Fields come off the board yet? Let's see real quick. No. Why are people taking Trey Lance over Justin Fields? I think Justin Fields has a chance to start like week 2, whereas I think Trey Lance, it might take a little bit longer because Jimmy Garoppolo is just good enough for with the team that is set up there to be able to win enough games to not get benched. So now we need a defense and a kicker. If you don't want to go defense and kicker, you could lean upside running backs and wide receivers back here and then pick up a kicker and a defense later on. Here we're going to go ahead and get Rodrigo. You sunk my Blankenship here. I don't know why Rodrigo Blankenship is ranked so low on these apps when Rodrigo was an absolute beast in fantasy last season. I love me some Rodrigo, especially his look. He just has a nice look to him, a nice vibe with those glasses. So after we went ahead and drafted Rodrigo Blankenship came Cole Comet. Now again, the reason why you might want to go instead of drafting a kicker and a defense, a late round running back, late round wide receiver in round 14 and 15 is because training camp is not over yet. Preseason is not over yet, and injuries happen, which sucks, obviously, but they happen in real life. Things can happen, and maybe you drafted 2 extra running backs, and say another running back got hurt, and bam, now you have a potential top 24 running back, top 15 running back, top 12 running back that you found in round 14 because you were lucky enough to draft extra running backs at the end of the draft. That's normally what I do, but in this video, I wanted to talk a little bit about kickers and defenses because in the last bunch of videos, I haven't even talked about them at all because I've only taken extra running backs and wide receivers. After Comet came the Indianapolis Colts, Jared Cook, Rashad Penny. So we are back up on the board here, and we got to go ahead and snag a defense, and we're going to go with the Chicago Bears. Normally, I draft a defense going up against an offense that I don't believe to be very good week 1. The Bears, they're playing the Rams. That's a little scary, but you know, I kind of just ran out of time there. I would have probably taken the Carolina Panthers defense since Denver's not here. They are going up against the Jets, and I think that is a pretty solid matchup for week number 1. So the 14th round ended with Rashad Penny. The 15th round began with the New Orleans Saints, LA Rams, Michael Badgley, Justin Fields, Chicago defense, Danny Dimes, and the Buffalo defense. Please, how many teams have teams taken 3 quarterbacks? No, no one has. Please, I'm going to be honest. If you take an early round quarterback that you're comfortable with, if you have Mahomes, if you have Kyler, if you have Josh Allen, if you have Dak, maybe not Dak, right? Because Dak technically kind of banged up, so maybe you're a little bit more worried about Dak. But if you have one of those top 5 quarterbacks, Lamar, then don't take a backup quarterback. When are you ever going to start that guy except for when your quarterback is hurt? Even against these bad matchups, you still start the elite quarterback because they are better than the competition. They are still safe, even up against tougher defensive matchups. So please do not take backup quarterbacks. Zach Wilson comes off the board. Everyone takes a second quarterback here, but in this kind of scenario, maybe you do want to take a second quarterback because now on the waiver wire, the quarterbacks won't look as good, but Tua still available. I mean, Derek Carr is probably going to have a great game when you need him. Week 10 for Burrow, you just throw him in there. Bada bing, bada boom, he should be fine. You just play the matchups. I don't really get why people are drafting backup quarterbacks. Same thing goes with backup tight ends unless you wait really late on tight end and then say you don't get one of those guys that I'm confident in, then you're with like Jonnu Smith, and if I get Jonnu Smith, then I have to package him with like Gronk or something, with someone else who I may be able to rely on and try to play matchups week in and week out, because I'm not overconfident in a guy like Jonnu Smith, Hunter Henry, any of those players. So now we get to do a kickflip 360 swirl onto the right side of the screen to recap our team. So to recap the team, our starting quarterback is Joe Burrow, our wideouts are Justin Jefferson and A.J. Brown, our running backs are Derrick Henry and Myles Gaskin, tight end Irv Smith, flex is Amari Cooper. The bench is comprised of Chase Claypool, Raheem the Dream Mostert, Cortland Sutton, Devin Singletary, James White, J.D. McKissic, and our kicker is Rodrigo Blankenship, and the defense is the Chi-Town Bears. Thank you guys all so much for watching. Let me know what you guys think about the hero running back strategy, which we basically did in this video. Maybe I'll make a video itself focusing in on that strategy. I love you guys. Make sure that you stay safe. As always, have a great rest of your guys' day. Make sure to follow me on Twitter if you made it this far, at NotoriousFNTSY, as well as writing CAR down below. like either you spell it as Derek Carr, C-A-R-R, or just Carr, to let me know that you made it this far in the video. I love you guys. Make sure that you stay safe, and I'll see you beautiful bastards in the morning with another banger of a video. As always, guys, stay safe. Good boy.